Hi, and welcome back to this bonus interview. I'm excited to share one of my favourite brands with you all today. For those of you in New Zealand, you'll no doubt have already heard of the ecostore. It is one of our first and most ethical and sustainable brands, developing, manufacturing and packing household cleaners, laundry, body care, skincare, baby care and oral care products at their own carbon zero certified factory in Auckland. And sharing the ecostore story today is Jemma Whiten, the Group Marketing Director, who is also responsible for sustainability projects and communications. Yes. Jemma is a professional with over 20 years experience managing brands for Unilever, Kimberly-Clark, Goodman Fielder across Australia, New Zealand, Europe, Asia, Brazil, and other global markets. Jemma is a strong believer in business as a force for good and in brands and companies driving significant positive change in the space of sustainability, combating climate change, and alleviating poverty. Jemma believes business, through their collective action, can and must help shape and create a healthier world. It is so nice to be speaking with you today, Jemma. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
So as I mentioned earlier, most New Zealanders hopefully will be familiar with the ecostore, but for those in the audience, our audience is global. For those who aren't familiar, are you able to share what you're all about?
Yeah, absolutely. Although I have to say your intro was very good. It was a good summary of things. Yeah. So fundamentally, the ecostore business and brand, we provide products that are safer for you and your family, essentially looking after both people and planet. And as you say, we are across a number of different categories, so a number of different products. So we operate across home, body and baby products. Essentially, the idea is that we are the safer eco alternative to those everyday products that you would have in your home and that you would use on yourself and your family. So the history is quite neat actually with ecostore. So it was kind of developed by accident. That's what I quite love about it. I mean, it's so very real that it was kind of by accident. So about 26 years ago, Malcolm and Melanie Rands were part of a group of people that started New Zealand's first permaculture eco-village up in Northland. And they were self-sufficient on the land, and they were right next to a national park in New Zealand. And so incredible bush, beautiful landscape. And the idea is, of course, that they were self-sufficient on the land. And so they were growing everything. And what they were finding is that everything around the property, so just around the house, wasn't growing well. It was dying, it was not in a good way. And they couldn't quite work out why. And they determined that actually it was because of the things they were using in their home. The chemicals and things were going into the water. They were then, of course, just using that water on their garden around the house. And it was dying. And so they determined that that's obviously wholly inappropriate, and it really made them think about the chemicals that are in everyday products. And so they spent a bit of time really hunting out those products that are safer. And really what they ended up doing was creating a whole lot of them themselves. So working to come up with much safer formulations, etc. And then once they'd done that, of course, everybody else in the rest of the eco-village said, oh, this is fantastic, we need that too. And then friends wanted that too, and then this sort of word spread very gently and, pardon the pun, slightly organically through New Zealand. And in the end, they sort of thought, well, actually, we should probably make a bit of a business out of this, and then set up a mail order, and then that really took off. And then they moved to Auckland to be able to kind of keep up with demand. And I think a bit of a turning point for them was also that they knew that these products were good for the environment. What they didn't realise is just what an impact they had on people. And people would say, the people that were using the products would say things like, I had eczema, and actually now that I've been using your product, I've tried lots of things, but now that I'm using your products, that eczema has gone away. And I think it was at that point in time, they're like, well, hang on, we're really onto something here that can help both people and planet. Mm-hmm. And so really creating products that are safer for you, safer for the world, safer for your family is really what we're all about, and has continued to drive the business to this very day. And, we've just over time been able to grow the business such that it is more readily available, and the products are more readily available across New Zealand. But also now we're in a number of export markets as well. So we are in Australia, China, and then we also have some presence in Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Korea, where else are we? Singapore. Yeah, so there's Taiwan. So we've got a little bit of a presence throughout Asia, but China and Australia are our big export markets.
Right. Yeah, and that totally makes sense, right? Because if it's killing your garden and it's killing nature,
yeah,
what is it doing to your body? So it's interesting that they started with the environment, and then there were all of these other, you know, personal implications, positive implications, which just makes sense, because let's face it, if it's killing the garden, it's probably not good for your skin.
No.
Yeah.
No, exactly. And so I really love that. I just think it came from such a sort of pure space in a way. And, you know, I love that Melanie and Malcolm really held on to that, of course, throughout the development of the business and the brand. And, you know, purposefully, the brand does look quite different. It does look different to your mainstream products because it is, you know, different. It has safer ingredients. We take a different approach to things, and we are taking that environmental angle to everything that we do.
Yeah. And speaking of that, you know, I know that you guys have really ambitious goals. You've got a goal to be the world's most trusted and sustainable home and body care brand. The world's. So I note that, you know, you've got some of those markets in there. How important is it for businesses like this to have such ambitious goals, and what kind of advice would you have for anyone out there with, you know, a big vision like that?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fundamental for businesses to have really big, stretching, ambitious goals. And if you truly believe in what you're doing and what you have to offer, then there should be nothing stopping you from going big. I think, you know, it's really important to have those stretching goals, but they have to be something that you fundamentally believe in, and that your team fundamentally believe in. And that is entirely, of course, related to and connected to what you can genuinely deliver as a business. And I think a big part of it is it's a little bit of a, you know, it's bandied around all the time now as a bit of a go-to word, but having a purpose is absolutely fundamental. It really is. And it's not about going, oh gosh, this purpose thing is the latest trend. We should probably come up with a line. You know, that doesn't quite cut it. And it's about having something that you genuinely believe in, that is the fundamental driver for your business and your brand. And, you know, you can see through the story that I told, I suppose, about the history of the brand is that it was inherent in the very start of the business and, you know, all subsequent years after that. So I think it's incredibly important, if you're going to have that big vision, it's got to be based on a fairly powerful purpose, and a purpose that you can truly drive. And then, you know, what you can do off the back of that is that you have that ability to drive and deliver an incredibly powerful brand. You know, a brand that people genuinely connect to. I mean, consumers, they see so many brands, they see so many advertising messages, so many products every single day. You know, the ones that are going to stand out are those that connect with people's inherent emotions and values. And I know I'm a marketer talking about that, and it's all a bit like, oh, really? But if you think about, you know, if you think about as a person, the brands that you truly love, the brands that you get a bit excited about and you talk about, and you say, you know, why do you love that brand? If I ask that question about ecostore, they don't say, oh, because you've got a laundry detergent that cleans my stains. They say, because I love what the brand stands for, or they say, because I want to be more sustainable, and you know, that's what ecostore is all about. So it's really then working out, you know, it gives you a brand to be able to use to connect to your consumers. I suppose that probably leads me on to just my next point. You know, if you're going to have a big vision, the reality is that unless you truly understand your consumer in every way, shape or form, you know, you won't be able to continue to drive that business. So really, consumers are our boss. You know, they are the ones that connect with and buy our products. And so we need to make sure that, you know, no matter what we do with our business or our brand, that we are ensuring that we are relevant to consumers, that we understand what their needs are right now and how those needs are changing over time. And in many respects, we need to understand what consumers are going to want in a couple of years before they even do as well. So I think that's a really key part. And then I suppose a final point, if you're going to have a really big, lofty business vision and you're really determined to go after that, great people. Having great people within a business, looking after those people, genuinely valuing those people and the experience and the expertise that they bring to a business is fundamental. And I think having a brand with a real purpose, of course, that really helps to connect to your consumers, but we're all humans, we're consumers too. And so what invariably it does as well is it helps you to connect to some of the very best people out there and the very best agencies out there. And, they want to be able to work with businesses that are aligned to the values that they are also driving as people and as other businesses and agencies. So I suppose that's what I'd say. So purpose, brand, understanding consumers, and then getting great talent, getting great people.
Yeah, and you mentioned right at the very beginning, those people, really buying into that, not just the purpose, but the belief that it is possible.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the thing is once you really, you stretch it, put out something really scary, put out something really big and lofty, and then start picking away at it. And it's amazing how, you get a few runs on the board, you see some successes, and instantly, team, that's a bit exciting. Well, it's fantastic. We've got some inroads there. Or you get a bit of buzz about one of the products or the innovations that you're doing. And, it's amazing how quickly that really the team starts going, you know what? Yeah, I think we can do this. So you've got to really celebrate those successes, keep that going because it helps to drive the team towards what otherwise could be seen as quite a lofty target.
Yeah, exactly. And so how do you, with a target like that, how do you actually measure it? How will you, or when will you know that you're there?
Yeah, great question. In many respects, I don't think you ever get there in the space that we're in. We're talking sustainability. There is so much we, and I mean we as a business, but also we as businesses, business groups, industries, and countries and governments need to do to address the sustainability and environmental issues that we've got. I think we're all probably very aware that things are getting worse at the moment rather than getting better. So are we ever going to get there? I think there's always going to be, we can be more sustainable, and then we can be more regenerative, and then we can be more circular. All of those things, there will always be ways in which we can improve. But, you've got to set those goals along the way such that you can chunk it down and drive towards, meaningful improvement as you go. And I think that comes down to, what is relevant to the business. And we talk about how many people's lives we touch, I suppose, in many respects, which is through how many products we sell and how many times we're doing that little bit of good for consumers. Because every one of our products sold means that there's less bad chemicals going down the drain. There's no petrochemical plastic because our plastic is made out of sugar. So it's about, for us, setting those targets that do make sense for us, and those targets are in relation to how many products we are selling and therefore how many little bits of good we're doing. But then, of course, from a business perspective, you set your typical targets and revenue and your profit and all the rest of it to help ensure that we can continue to drive the business as hard as fast as we'd like. So I suppose it's always about being able to measure is, of course, essential. So that you can measure how things are going, address problems, address gaps. You can stretch teams as well and stretch yourself and stretch the business. But then I would also say that no target is ever absolute. We can always do more, especially in this space of sustainability.
Yeah. And in terms of, the definition of the world, I'm assuming you have, a plan for the markets that you'll be launching into over however many years, whatever your business plan is.
Yes, and I think though also, in any business, particularly New Zealand businesses that are thinking about growing, is we are such a tiny market, teeny tiny market. So anything seems like growth outside of us, really, which is true.
Yeah.
And what we've got to think about is don't go too far, too fast, and spread yourself too thin.
Yep.
For sure. And then also don't just tick off markets for the sake of ticking off markets. You know, what you might be better to do to drive better growth and therefore make bigger impacts is get into a market, do it really well, and then go, right, what's the next market? And then move on to the next market. And I think that's very dependent on which industry you're in, what products you're selling, and, you know, the structure of your business. And it's important to work through what makes sense for your business. But I do think sometimes, particularly New Zealand businesses, can go out there, they get some great immediate growth, but what they've got to almost do is sometimes keep that quite a little bit more contained, such that they are holding on to their brand and control of their pricing, such that they have a sustainable business over multiple years. I think this happens in China quite a lot. You know, you go into China, it's an incredibly different market. It's absolutely fascinating. I love working in China. You know, and they just approach business in a different way. The way that you build brands in China is different. And that's based on what consumers need, want, and expect, how they shop, all the rest of it. But I think the risk is that we kind of go, oh, it's a bit of an unknown, as any export market is to any business. So, you know, the risk is that you give away too much of the control of your business and your brand. But in doing so, it gets taken out of your hands and it sort of turns into something else. You know, if you really want to build something that is truly global, and, you know, I was fortunate enough to work on a lot of global brands at Unilever, is if you have a brand that is really clear, that has a clear reason to be and a clear proposition and a clear consumer target, you will find that across the globe. You will find that in just about any market. So, you know, the thing for us is, you know, do people want products that are safer for them and their family? Yes. And that holds true across all cultures. And so then you've got something really powerful. So the most important thing then is to hold on to that and build that as a brand consistently across your export markets.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I have any more to add to that. And I think, you know, for a lot of people in our audience, yeah, China does represent a massive opportunity, right? So some really good tips in there to not rush in.
Yeah, and I think it's to go in and get help. So, you know, I don't use a Western advertising agency. I use a Chinese advertising agency. And they are absolutely phenomenal. They're fantastic. They're a small little outfit, but they teach me so much about the market. They teach me so much about the consumers, the media landscape, and how much it's changing. Is it uncomfortable? Yeah. Is it different? Yes, absolutely. That's kind of why it's so cool. But it's, you know, it is all of those things. But if you truly want to build a business in a market, you need to understand that market and you need to have the right kind of help to do so. Yeah. We can't always think that we can sit in one place and build a global brand from there. I think it's finding that balance of... Yeah,
absolutely. And it's not a cookie cutter approach. What works here doesn't always resonate or translate elsewhere, right?
But then conversely, what you don't want to do is then try and create a different brand in every market. And that's something that I think, you know, this is where brand marketing comes into its own, is this whole, but we have to reshape everything. We have to completely redo the proposition. We have to redo the mix and we have to redo the packaging and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
If you do that, I mean, it's possible to do that. It may be quite useful. Will it create an almighty, just incredible complexity? Yes. Can you manage that complexity? Probably not. Does that complexity come at a massive cost? Yes. So you've got to find that balance between building a global brand, but finding the things that you need to flex to make the market relevant.
Yeah. Yeah. And it ultimately comes back to what you were talking about earlier, that purpose, right? The purpose doesn't change. Exactly. And the values don't change. No. It may just be the way that you translate them in certain markets.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the brand's been around for 26 years and it's been in New Zealand for 26 years. And I think the first thing I said when I came into the business, I remember having this conversation with Malcolm and he said, oh, you're a marketer, you're going to change the brand. And I said, no, I'm not. I promise, Malcolm, I'm not. Because the point is you don't change the brand what you have to do is work out how to best communicate that brand and tell that brand story to consumers that do change. So it's about maintaining the relevance of your brand and your message to your consumers rather than trying to change your brand. Yeah.
Completely agree. And all the equity that, you know, you build up over 26 years, it's not about changing the brand.
No.
Yeah. So you touched on, you know, a few things that you're already doing and, you know, and how it's core to the brand. So sustainability for the ecostore includes everything from safe ingredients to environmentally friendly packaging to traceable supply chains. You know, obviously this speaks to how sustainability is ingrained in every part of the business. How do you ensure the highest quality of all of that when you're doing so much?
I think you just have to always strive for the best. And certainly one of the things that we have a precautionary principle within our business that helps to drive certainly the formulation side of things, ingredients, because that's so key and so fundamental to who we are as a business. So the precautionary principle is essentially science and understanding of it, understanding of ingredients changes all the time. And what we have to do is really keep on top of what are considered safe ingredients. Yeah. And you know that understanding changes all the time. There are new ingredients all the time, and the science and understanding of it changes. So for us, it's about if we have any concerns around the safety of an ingredient, then we won't use it, or we'll go hunting for something that is better. And that can take time, and it can come with extra work, etc. But it means that we are then fundamentally holding true to having those safer formulations. And then it's the same thing with our packaging. So the reality of supermarket products is that they are packaged in plastic packaging, and that is for ease of supply chain, it's for ease of stocking, it's for consumers, all the rest of it. But, you know, we had these incredible formulations, and then you're like, but then it's in plastic packaging. So I think 6 years ago now, that's when we made the change to sugar plastic, which is at significant cost to us, but was absolutely the right thing to do. So the difference is that, so normal plastic is made from petrochemicals. Petrochemicals are not sustainable nor renewable. It's oil pulled up out of the ground, awful. It's then produced in a very dirty manner into plastic. The average lifespan of a piece of plastic is 480 years. If you think about how long we use plastic for, it can be minutes, weeks, months, maybe years. But then that plastic is essentially, you know, put out into waste or recycling. And so we're using sugar plastic. So it's just as recyclable as any other number 2 HDPE plastic, but it's made from sugar. So it's sugar that, as it grows, pulls carbon out of the atmosphere because it's a plant, and it's basically a byproduct. It's grown on land that other plants and crops just won't grow on. It's quite neat in that respect. And yeah, so we're using sugar plastic, and the really neat thing is we're starting to see other businesses doing so. So Fonterra just recently launched their milk bottle made of plants, and so we are starting to see more and more of that across the globe, which is really neat. So for us, it's about, you know, looking and interrogating every part of our products and our business and the way in which we do business, and always ensuring that we're challenging ourselves to do better. And I think, are we perfect? Absolutely not. Can we always do better? Absolutely. Any business can, and we should continue to strive to do so. So I think it's about having that hunger to always do more, always do better, to always stretch yourself, and to always think about, again, coming back to that purpose, you know, what is it that we want to do? Who do we want to be? And therefore, what business decisions do we make?
Yeah. So culture of constant challenge.
Yeah. Oh, that's a much better way of summing up. I could have said it so much faster. That was good. Why was the long version?
And in addition to all of that, you guys also give back to the community through volunteering programs. You've got a fundraising range. You've even got a foundation that was set up by your founders. So out of all of that, Jemma, what is your favourite initiative of the ecostore and why?
I love supporting community. It is really important to support community. There are so many groups and people and organisations that are in need. it always feels hard. You always feel like you wish you could do a lot more. But we do, we try and support places like City Mission and Women's Refuge, Kids Can, to name a few. And then also really just where we can, supporting small community initiatives as well. So we get reach out from various different people. And then also, of course, environmental groups. There are so many environmental groups that are doing fabulous things, but Sustainable Coastlines are a partner that we've been working with for many years. Sustainable Business Network, Sustainable Business Council. They're all groups and industry groups that they work so hard with so little to do so much. And so anything that we can do to support those groups as well, we will always do our best to do so. We also work with schools, which is really neat as well. It's quite exciting, with our plastic return program. So we've created New Zealand's first closed loop packaging return program. So basically that sugar plastic that I was talking about, there's a huge amount of value in that plastic, and those bottles are incredibly important. And we also have a significant waste and recycling problem in New Zealand, but also across the globe. So really, I want those bottles back. If I get those bottles back, they don't go into waste, they don't go into the recycling, and we can grind those bottles down and we remake them. And so we're actually working with over 110 stores, specialty stores in schools across New Zealand. And so you can take your bottles, empty bottles back to those schools, to those stores. It means that they don't go into the recycling system, which is too much of our recycling, a lot of it. Yep. Up to 60% of it ends up overseas where we can't control where it goes. So we simply get those plastic bottles back, we literally grind them down, remelt them, and away they go again. So it means that we can just keep reusing every single bit of plastic that we get back through that. And what it's enabled us to do, where I get really excited, is it's enabled us to teach kids circular economy principles, because the discussions that we had with the teachers was that students, makes perfect sense, students don't learn through hearing, they learn through doing. And so this whole idea of that there's this program they can get involved in, they're going around community markets and collecting ecostore bottles, they're doing science projects off the back of it, maths projects, sustainability projects, art projects. We've got the coolest art in our office from the students. And so, these kids get really engaged in it. And it means that they then can very easily grasp the concept of circular economy principles through doing. So that's probably the bit I'm most excited about.
And grassroots, and where is that going to lead? The next generation just growing up with those principles and it becoming the norm and actually an expectation.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Well, I love all the amazing things you guys are doing at the ecostore, Jemma. For me, it really is the best case study for ethical and sustainable businesses, because it does cover pretty much everything we've been discussing in the Ethical Entrepreneur series. So thank you so much for sharing with us today.
No problems at all. Thank you for having me.
I'm sure it's inspired all our VIPs with a few more ideas on how they can create a more sustainable and ethical business themselves. So for all of you,
I'm always happy to connect as well, on LinkedIn and things like that. So if people want to bash around sustainability ideas, there's nothing better than businesses coming together and sharing problems and sharing solutions. So
fantastic. Well, I'll share your LinkedIn profile as well then.
Sure.
Okay.
Go for it. Yeah.
So like Jemma said, feel free to connect or visit the ecostore online, ecostore.co.nz. I will put it somewhere up here. They actually have a limited edition refill bottle at the moment that's made of stainless steel, and it's in store now, so look out for them in supermarkets and specialty stores. Let me know how you get on. I would love to hear your goals for the next ecostore story. What are your ambitious goals? Let me know. Keen to hear what they are. Take care. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Jemma.